Am I an a-hole for keeping an inheritance from my ex-husband's homophobic family?
I, 33-year-old female, married my childhood best friend John, who's also 33, when we were 22. I knew he was gay, and we decided to get married for several reasons. Taxes, convenience, to keep his family from finding out, etc. I got along with his family who loved me. John had med school paid for by his family. I didn't have a job, and instead became a full-time caretaker for his maternal grandparents, who, when we first got married, were 85 and 87, and were dealing with multiple health problems. John's family supported us both financially through John's medical training. Once John got his MD and finished residency 3 years ago, he decided to come out to his parents. We got divorced. We decided against telling the family that I knew all along. John's parents cut him off completely when he moved in with his boyfriend, basically disowning him. His grandparents weren't told about him being gay. Everyone was pretty much in agreement that it was not a good idea, as they were quite fragile physically and mentally at this point, but they knew we divorced. And whereas John used to come see his grandparents frequently because his parents had disowned him, John decided to pretty much limit contact with his entire family and never really visited or called. On the other hand, I had been his grandparents' main caretaker for so long that I, number one, did not have any other career training to support myself. Number two, figured it would make sense for me to continue their caretaker, as they were rapidly declining and I did not want them to adjust poorly to a lot of changes. I moved into his grandparents' home with them. While I was angry at John's parents for their treatment of him, I still loved his grandparents who have always been kind to me. When they passed, within a few weeks of each other, his grandfather ended up willing most of their entire estate to me. Well, it was about $12 million in assets. John and his mom each received about $50,000. John and I discussed it and felt it was fair that he decided and received a higher portion. And we're both happy and comfortable with how we divided it. His parents, on the other hand, had expected to receive the bulk of the inheritance and accused me of abusing his grandparents and manipulating them into willing almost everything to me. Apparently, he had more business decisions, assuming they would receive the money. They also argued that they would have gone ballistic if they knew John was using their money to, quote, fund his lifestyle. I honestly hadn't thought of their will at all when they passed. It never even came up. But I feel John deserves the money after the way his parents treated him. And John tells me I deserve to be taken care of after I spent more than a decade of my life caring for his grandparents. Are we the a-holes for keeping the inheritance when his parents had made plans based on their assumptions of the inheritance?
I say not the a-hole on this one, and I came across a comment that I agree with. It says, even if John's parents were decent people, OP spent a decade caring for them and deserves whatever they felt was right to give her, which in this case I agree with. She gave her 20s to them and was with them until the end. That is far more than John's mother can say she did for them in the last 10 years. Let me know what you guys think of that opinion. Drop your opinion in the comment section down below, and let's see what's going on with the next story.
I'm a 40-year-old married father of one. My mom died in 2020 unexpectedly, and she'd left her retirement accounts and cash proceeds from a house to me as beneficiary. It was about $650,000. I am financially well off, with my wife and I working good jobs and owning our own home. I hired a lawyer to probate her estate because I knew nothing about her end-of-life plans. No explicit will. We had talked about end-of-life stuff, but she died right after retirement at pretty young age of 65. I was very uncomfortable talking about it because I did not want to think of her dying. As I navigated probate, I discovered that she had in accounts but did not have access to them until the courts declared me the family rep. Because I thought probate would split her assets 3 ways, I was transparent with my brothers about how much Mom had. So they did not think I was stealing from her estate. When the courts declared me family rep, I discovered all her money named me beneficiary. My brothers were left nothing from my mother on paper. My middle brother had shut my mom out of his life for 12 years due to his anger about her alcoholism. I had tried to get them to reconcile, but to no avail. My mom was stubborn and hated being called out for her drinking. My brother was mad at what he feels were lost opportunities in his 20s because of his relationship with Mom. My brother and I have a tenuous relationship because, well, he mismanages his 6-figure income and is constantly borrowing money from me. When Mom died, I gave him Mom's car, which was worth $10,000. His car was broken down, plus $10,000 in cash in 2021 and $10,000 in cash in 2022. He's broke again, despite me trying to help him, and heavily resents that I'm managing my mother's money. I think he's either got a severe gambling problem or is abusing his prescription ADHD medicine. My youngest brother is a diagnosed schizophrenic, but living independently despite this, and he's gone off his meds for the millionth time. His money is managed by a fiduciary. He's a disabled former veteran and has 100% of his living expenses paid for from a settlement he got from the Army plus his disability check. I personally gave him $10,000 via his fiduciary, but haven't had much contact with him because he's so unstable. When he's on his medicine, he's okay. He wildly mismanages his weekly allowance and fights with his fiduciary. He takes illegal drugs, and for a year would not even buy himself groceries. He gets his $150 in cash allowance from the fiduciary on Fridays, and gambles it away the same day. If he straight up received a lump sum of money, I'm worried he's gonna die. Am I the a-hole my brother sure thinks I am? I'm trying to honor my mom's wishes and keep intact this amazing windfall, which would be wasted at the casino or on drugs.
Not the a-hole, and in fact, I'm super glad OP kept all the money. Like he said in the story, he's worried that a lump sum of money like this could actually be a huge consequence for his brothers, as they're battling some demons right now and that money is not going to end well. Let me know your thoughts on this, guys. I love hearing your opinion, and here comes the next story.
My husband Jack and I married later in life. We were both in our 50s. It was a second marriage for both of us. He has 3 children. I don't have any biological children, but I am still very close to my former stepson, Thomas, that I helped raise. We were both very well off financially, Jack more than me. Jack owned his own business and was upfront that he intended that the business to be left to his children. We signed a prenup before our wedding that basically said we each get to keep what we brought into marriage. We kept our finances separate, though we both contributed to a joint account for household expenses, which we split 50-50. We did our wills at the same time. Jack left everything to his children and I left mine to Thomas. We were both aware of what the other had done and we were fine with it. Well, Jack's business went under about 4 years ago. He was desperate to keep the business going and poured all his savings into it. The business had been his grandfather's and then his father's, and he was determined to be able to hand it down to his children. He ended up losing almost everything. He was completely devastated. Standards of living wise, not much changed, except that I'm paying 100% household expenses. I love him, and I'm fine with this. I had a health scare about a month ago where I realized that if I died, Jack would be left with nothing as my will gives everything I own to Thomas. I told Jack I was planning to change my will. My plan was to put a third of my assets into a trust for Thomas's children. He has two currently and both call me Nana. A third directly to Thomas and a third in the trust for Jack. I would set it up so Jack would receive a generous monthly check, but that after he died, the assets in the trust would go to Thomas. I did it that way just because I want Jack taken care of while he's alive. But after that, I want it to go to Thomas, not Jack's kids. Jack is furious that his children aren't going to receive anything. He kept pointing out that I have 3 stepchildren, not just one former one. Why are his kids getting nothing and Thomas everything? I should say that by the time we got together, Jack's children were fully grown. One already had a child and another was married. Other than the occasional holiday, I've never lived with Jack's kids. While he's not mine biologically, Thomas is my son in every way that counts. While I get along with Jack's kids, we're not close at all. Jack is threatening to leave me over this. He keeps saying that I don't care about his kids. That means I don't care about him. I've told him that's nonsense and that I don't respond well to ultimatums. We had planned to leave our assets separately before we even married. But now that he doesn't have money, suddenly he wants me to leave my money to his children. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to do this?
In this one, I think OP has to be not the a-hole because they agreed in the beginning to keep your expenses separate. So I think that basically seals the decision. But let me know if you don't agree with me or if you think otherwise. I would love to hear your opinion. We still have one more story left in today's video. I hope everyone's enjoying this and having a wonderful day. Let's go ahead and jump into today's final story.
My wife's best friend Vanessa and her husband James were convicted of a serious fraud a few days ago and will be sentenced in a couple of weeks. It's possible that as part of their sentence, they'll have as much of what they purchased using the illegal money taken away. This includes their cars and some pieces of art that they own. Vanessa also has a lot of expensive clothes. She claims to have shopped all over the world, and their house was whole rooms full of her shoes and dresses. While they've both accepted that their previous lifestyle's over, and that they're both facing a long time in prison, Vanessa does not want to let go of her wardrobe. Because of my job, construction, I own a van. Vanessa asked my wife if we could borrow it. She wants to put her clothes in my van and for me to drive it somewhere far away and store it. They've figured that while the cars are traceable by the police, they can't keep those. Vanessa's clothes aren't traceable, so they can get away with keeping those. She wants to keep them for when she gets out of prison. I told my wife that I would not be taking part in something that could potentially get us both arrested. She responded that the clothes aren't being monitored and the risk of the police coming after us is so tiny. She then said I was cruel for not wanting to help a woman who's looking at years in prison. I don't think it's cruel at all. Even if it's a tiny risk, it's a risk. My wife and I have jobs and 2 children to provide for. Trouble with police could ruin our lives. Am I the a-hole?
This one to me was so clearly not the a-hole. I hope OP steers clear from his wife. This could be a huge red flag and an indicator that she's up to no good. I would not put those clothes anywhere near my van. What would you guys do though? Would you take the risk even if it was very tiny you would get caught? Drop your comments down below. I hope everyone enjoyed these stories. That's all the content I have for you today. But smash that subscribe button because you know Mr. Reddito is here every single day on both channels. Mr. Reddito Animated and Mr. Reddito Stories. Okay guys, enjoy the rest of the videos, have a wonderful day, and I'll catch y'all tomorrow.